Hello, everyone. Alex Gutman here. We are starting a podcast today. It's the first of its kind, at least as far as I know. We're calling this the Medama Infection Prevention Podcast. And the goal of this podcast is to solely introduce to the industry different personalities, different people that are involved in healthcare and infection prevention, and to sort of bring out to the open the different challenges, the different technologies, and the different systems that are out there to help combat infections in hospitals. And my first guest is my co-host, Ronnie Sverriston. And Ronnie is an prevention specialist, a nurse that's trained in this field. And he's going to be my co-host. And our goal is to meet people in our industry, interview them, and see what kind of insights, what kind of uh, information we can garner and gather from all the people that are out there. So, having said that, I want to just give a little bit of a background of who I am. I am a partner at Medama Solutions or Ace Janitorial. Been in the business 35 years. Started when I was 5 years old, right, Renan? Renan, by the way, is my partner over there, co-host, and he will be with us on these podcasts, hopefully all of them, if not most of them. And I've been doing this business for a very long time, working in healthcare, dealing with the challenges that hospitals deal with on a daily basis, whether it's cleaning, whether it's disinfecting. And my job has always been to develop chemistry or to develop solutions that are unique and different, trying to reinvent the wheel, sort of, to try to do things differently to be successful in combating these organisms and challenges that most hospitals deal with. And so, having done that quick intro, I want to just introduce my co-host, Ronnie. Ronnie, are you there?
I'm here. Good
There he
evening.
is.
I've been working in healthcare for more than 30 years. Been doing infection control. Started out as a bedside nurse in the emergency department when I was younger and had to get that adrenaline charge. Then I was asked to move into the infection control realm, and that was a perfect mix because with my background, I've got a degree in biology and a degree in nursing. So I was able to merge those two degrees together by doing infection control. One of the hospitals actually forwarded me on to UNC, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, the statewide program for infection control and epidemiology, where there I received certification and later went on to get national certification in infection control and epidemiology. It's been a very challenging, a very interesting job, infection control. It has gone from germs to bioterrorism to pandemics. And of course, now we're just trying to kill all the bugs, trying to kill all the germs. And the new emerging pathogens, of course, are on the scene now as well. So the reason, of course, I'm moved from the hospital in healthcare to corporate healthcare is because I think I can make a stronger impact on people's lives in hospitals. Before, I was working in two hospitals and in charge of the infection control program for two hospitals, and now I'm able to help decrease infection rates and hopefully save lives in multiple hospitals. So that's why I'm in the corporate world now instead of at the bedside or in the hospital doing infection control on a daily basis.
That's great, Ronnie. And, the on a personal basis, I had a bunch of family members over the years that died of C. diff infections in hospitals. Candida auris is one of the bacteria organisms and fungus organisms that we're dealing with, fungi. Um, and having witnessed relatives of mine and friends of mine, actually recently we just had a memorial for a friend of mine who had died from a infection. He had cancer, of course, and his immune system was already pretty beaten up. But it was the infection that got him in the end. And it was a hospital-acquired infection. And people don't realize, and I know like friends of mine who are semi-aware of what goes on in hospitals, and what they'll say is, you know, they want me in and out of that hospital for that procedure as quickly as possible because they're afraid that I'm going to get an infection in the hospital. And it's kind of crazy if you think about it that, you have a terrible disease, you go in for mild surgery, a minor surgery, and the next thing you know, you're in serious condition because you picked up an infection. So having said that, and having witnessed this personally myself, how, how do you feel healthcare is approaching the disinfecting of surfaces in a hospital, or let's say the cleaning and disinfecting of surfaces in hospitals? Would you say that American healthcare, or what you've seen or witnessed in the healthcare system, would get from, let's say, an A to an F? Where would you grade the healthcare systems in the United States today when it comes to approaching infection rates?
Well, when it comes to the environment in the hospital, um, I like to give it maybe a good solid D.
Wow.
Wow, a D. Gee.
Um, you know, one of the problems, and it was one of the things that we were taught very early on in infection control, is that you can't sterilize or disinfect anything that's not clean. And too many facilities, you go in, you get to talking and asking questions. They think that they have a wipe that's a cleaner and disinfectant all in one. Oh, well, we'll just clean it. And because we cleaned it, it was also disinfected. But if you didn't clean it first and there's a bioburden there and you don't remove that bioburden, then you can't disinfect it. So I think that is something maybe that is missing, some of the training. And we see some of that. We turn it around in hospitals. So once we go into a hospital and we facilitate this training, I think we are bumping those scores up closer to that A. Some of our hospitals actually, they have if their ratings are A ratings with the different organizations that come in and actually grade them, like Leapfrog or magnet hospitals and things like that. So they're great hospitals. They're doing everything, as far as healthcare, they're providing great healthcare. We just want to make sure that they're providing great environmental cleaning and disinfecting.
Well, it's funny because a D, I mean that's pretty scary. The thing that I've noticed in my travels, and over the couple of years now, I've been in over 1,500 hospitals around the country, maybe more. And I actually traveled internationally. I've been to Amsterdam many years ago, and I did a tour of their healthcare system, which is a government-run healthcare system. At least that hospital that I went to was. The thing, and in Canada, same thing. I was in government-run healthcare systems in Canada, and what seems to be the trend in all of these hospitals is people are loading bullets into guns, and I would call these bullets, the weapons that, or the ammunition that we use to kill the bacteria and viruses. And they'll load every kind of bullet, every kind of gun that you can imagine, and then they'll shoot and hope that they kill the germ that they're going after. So in order to really break that down into more of a practical uh, description, I would say, you go into a hospital today, they may have 10, 15 different tools that they use to combat bacteria and viruses. They may use certain wipes on the floor. They may use UV light. They may use filters. Even with the chemistry themselves, there's 5 or 6 different chemicals that they're combating. There's bleach, there's oxyvera, there's purple tops and red tops and brown tops. And I mean, it's almost like it's like, let's just shoot in the dark and hope that everything hits the target. And, maybe if we throw enough things at the target, we won't miss. Do you find that that's been the case for the past how many years that you've been in this industry?
For more than 30. And I would agree. It's kind of like a buffet out there. When you go to choose, what do you choose and how do you choose it? An example that kind of come to mind when you were talking about this, and you mentioned C. diff in hospitals, and friends and loved ones who've actually had infections with C. diff, and I've had that as well in my family and among my friends. Things such simple as like bedside commodes with patients who have C. diff. Then when you get ready to disinfect that commode before it goes into another patient's room, there's certain disinfectants on the buffet that do not kill or inactivate the C. diff. And if you choose one of those, and one of the things I mentioned was, that it's like a D, but the people that are doing the job, they want to do a good job. They really do. And I see that continuously. But it's a matter of them selecting the right tool to perform the job that they're there to do. If they choose a quaternary ammonium that does not inactivate C. diff, then whenever they clean that, even though they've cleaned it very well, it's clean, but it's not been disinfected properly because now the C. diff has not been inactivated. And they take that chair that's clean, yet it continues to hold C. diff into another patient's room, then they can transmit the C. diff to that next patient. And it's all not because they didn't do a good job, but because they didn't have the right tool. They didn't select the right disinfectant off the disinfecting buffet.
Right. And go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And they really thought that they were doing the right thing. And they did an excellent job as far as cleaning and disinfecting. The only problem was they chose the wrong tool to perform the job with.
Right. I was going to jump in on what you were saying also is, there's also when you deal with disinfecting, there's also the other aspect of hand washing, and this is an obsession. Any infection control nurse in the country, will be looking at hand washing as probably number one, or matched with the disinfecting that they're using in importance, with the hand washing. And even with hand washing, it's so confusing because they'll tell you we have hand sanitizers on the wall, but then there's only so many times that you're supposed to use the hand sanitizer before you do hand washing. And you have so many people, working in a hospital, from the nursing to the doctors to the PAs to the PAs and surgeons. And surgeons are using a scrub before they go into an operating room, and their scrub is maybe povidone iodine or chlorhexidine glutamate, which have their residual kills on the CHE specifically, or you may have special kind of hand sanitizers on the floors versus hand sanitizers in critical care units. I've even seen the hand sanitizers with chlorhexidine glutamate in it. So it's like there's so many different variables to keep track of that. You know it's only a matter of time before something gets screwy. Meaning, a nurse goes into a room, doesn't wash her hand all day, or a doctor goes into a hand, doesn't wash their hands all day because they think they got the hand sanitizer and that's good enough. I've gone into hospitals where the nurse pumps the hand sanitizer, then puts on latex gloves, then touches multiple surfaces, and then puts the line into my hand. And I'm saying to draw blood, and I'm saying, wait a minute, what just happened there? This happened so quickly. Usually, with this so quick of drawing blood, but that's an infection waiting to happen because that hand sanitizing did nothing. Because after you put on your gloves, you now touch multiple surfaces. So there's so much confusion, and for an infection control nurse to do their job, it's climbing a mountain because there's so many different areas where there's confusion. And then you have lines. I had a relative who was in a hospital, and the surgeon's assistant was touching the lines that was in my relative, and was not washing their hands. They were just touching the floor, not touching the floor, but touching the table, touching multiple surfaces in that room and then touching the line without sanitizing their hands or changing the glove. So to me, uh, it's really an incredible job that an infection control nurse has to do. It's almost impossible. Do you find that that's the case?
That is the case. Infection control professionals, they have an overwhelming task to try to cover every single potential in the hospital. And they cover every department in the hospital, from environmental services right on up to administration. I mean, we want to make sure that everyone's performing proper hand hygiene. Then you have to go out and observe. So you have to document that these folks are actually performing the hand hygiene. And of course, everyone knows who's the infection control practitioner or professional in the hospital, who's the preventionist here. Whenever they come around, oh, let's wash our hands. So it's hard to collect accurate data when it comes to hand hygiene. It really is. It's very difficult. And if we could ever come up with a method of hand hygiene, the observations of when they actually perform the hand hygiene and the missed opportunities, I think it's important for us to catch the numerator and the denominator to help actually be able to collect accurate data. This would help the infection professional immensely, because now that kind of helps to automate one of the items that's on their plate.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. The other aspect that we deal with in hospitals is, and I've seen this, which is mind-boggling to me. How many times have you seen in your career an OR room where they'll disinfect the OR room completely, and then the stainless steel surfaces, they'll put on a mineral oil based um, coating to make the stainless steel look good. And I've had this discussion. You're putting in a hospital mineral oil to make the stainless steel look good, but the mineral oil, the product that makes it shine or protective, is organic based. So now in the OR, you're putting products that are bacteria based or petri dishes for bacteria and viruses.
Food
Food
source.
sources, exactly. And I'm always like, wait a minute. I understand if you're doing this on the elevators, but you're doing this in the OR. And how about when they put equipment that goes into the OR and it's waiting outside the OR covered by plastic bags, garbage bags on top of it, like IV poles or monitors, and they're outside the OR covered by garbage bags. Do they disinfect those pieces of equipment before the next procedure? I don't know. It doesn't look like the
I
hospitals
hope
I've been
so.
in.
I
I
hope so.
hope so. Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
to me, it's a really a really monumental task to get these hospitals clean and disinfected. And I think that's one of the things that you and I uh, need to explore when we speak to infection control nurses or when we speak to healthcare professionals. What is it that they're dealing with? How do they deal with this stuff? It would be interesting for the industry to share with each other through our podcast different ideas and different ways that we can overcome these challenges. Because to me, it's it's just if after all these years of going into hospitals, it's just still very, very uh, monument. Word I'm looking is like the Mount Everest of
Yes.
healthcare to
It's
overcome.
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And so there must be simpler ways. There must be ways that are, especially with technology, with AI, with all the different kinds of products that are coming out into the market. I've seen recently technology where people are able to identify C. diff. I'm hoping that maybe down the road we'll get to meet this company where you can actually see the C. diff on different surfaces, and you can then see if your disinfectant or cleaning process got rid of that C. diff. So technology like that, maybe simplifying the disinfecting and cleaning processes, not having 1,000 different guns, but having one good gun to do
That's
it.
right.
That might be the way to go. Those are things I think that you and I and Renan, you too, Renan, we can explore together to try to figure out what's coming down the pipeline and what are people doing that really uh, improves on what we already, experiencing.
And I'm hoping that we can catch the interest of other professionals in the hospital, not just the infection preventionists, but anyone who's at the bedside or goes in the patient room or has anything to do with anything that goes into a patient room. It's the assignment of the infection control. They hold the title. The infection preventionist holds the title, but it's really the responsibility of everyone in the hospital to provide infection prevention to our patients.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's a great point. And also, I think education is a key. The education team, the education nurses and the teams, whether it's the vendors that are working with the hospital, or whether it's the infection control team, working with the education team to educate the front line. At the end of the day, it's all about education. If you're
Yes.
going to have a system, everyone's got to know about it.
And I have found that people are more, they're more apt to actually do what is right if they know why that they're doing it. So you can't just tell someone to do this because it's the right thing. But if they have an understanding of why it's important for those things to be done, then they're more, usually they're more willing to perform those extra tasks, even if it takes a little extra time. And time is of essence in a hospital, but in the germ world, time is of essence too for survival of microorganisms.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to touch on, and maybe in the next couple of podcasts, are the different surfaces that different hospitals want disinfected. We all know hand contact surfaces need to be disinfected, but there seems to be a movement these days, or I wouldn't say it's a movement, but there seems to be hospitals that have gone into where now they want to disinfect the floors. So to me, that's a little bit of a interesting approach. Like, why disinfect floors? Is it really important to disinfect floors, especially if patients are not rolling around on the floor? And hopefully doctors and nurses are not holding their hands on the floor before they touch a patient, or touching the floors before they touch a patient.
It
But
depends
again,
on
these
if
are
there's
things.
a 5-second rule or not.
Right, there you go. Was that the infection control 101 that taught that 5-second rule, or is that
Right.
to me it's always amazing, what you learn that's going on out there in different, processes. The other interesting thing I've seen was, especially during COVID, when people started doing air filtration. And I said, how does this exactly work? You're cleaning the air of bacteria and viruses by putting a special filter in the room. What happens if someone opens the window? Now what? What happens if someone comes into the room and coughs? Does that filter clean out that germ before it gets to the patient? How does that work? And so a lot of these things are almost like a voodoo kind of approach to healthcare. I
Yes.
mean,
That's
maybe
why I
I'm
think
missing.
it's so important to keep with the science. What does
Yeah,
the science show?
right. It just sort of figure out what people are doing and thinking. I'd love to know what some infection control nurses are thinking. Or not only infection control nurses, administrators. I want to know, what is it that they're, being told by the industry. Is the industry telling hospitals this is what you need to do and do it or else? Or is this something, or is there a logic behind it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Have you found uh, that in your career, where hospitals will do what other hospitals are doing without knowing why they're doing it? In other words, they'll say, "Oh, we're going to do this process because Joe Schmo down the block is doing it that way, and I used to work there, and that's how they did it." But why? I have no idea, but that's what we do.
Yeah. Maybe there's a little bit of that. For the most part in healthcare, people usually they want to have a reason, cause and effect, if you will. So
Oh
therefore, if
God.
you can provide the science, a lot of times they're a little more eager to, like I said, when people know why we're doing what we're doing and what's the purpose behind it, then they're more willing to do it.
Do you
But
find
yes,
that
I have seen that. And sometimes I think it's good to know what the outcome is if somebody's doing something that we're not doing.
right?
What is the outcome? If even if we don't understand the process or the science behind it. An example of that in healthcare, it's recommended if someone has a cold to take chicken broth. You know, scientists have tried to figure out why. Statistically, it does make improvement for the patient. We're not really sure why, but we do it. So I guess that's kind of an example of what you're saying.
Good old chicken soup, man. Unbelievable. Look at that.
Chicken
That's
soup's good
crazy.
for it all.
There you go. So I'm waiting for them to make chicken soup gummies. You know, have like vitamin C gummies, and they have vitamin D gummies. Now they just have to come up with a chicken soup gummy and see how
Yeah,
popular
that's
that
right.
becomes.
Chicken soup
Like
gummy.
it's like the zinc or that people take when they're getting a cold, you know. But the have you found that you know, in today's day and age, with all this innovation happening throughout uh, all industries, including healthcare. I mean, you know, robotics and robotic surgery and specialty kind of radiation treatments or high beam or fine-tuned beam radiation and all these new drugs. Do you find though, when it comes to cleaning or disinfecting or hand washing, that hospitals tend to go to the traditional methods? They're afraid of change. They're afraid to do anything that might be a little bit out of the box when it comes to that kind of
Yeah,
treatment.
I think you're right about that. I think some hospitals, if they haven't heard of something, they're a little reluctant to try it. Even if you can provide the science, sometimes it's like a hurdle that they just can't get over because they may not know of someone else that's doing that same process or that using that same chemical or drug or whatnot. So it's a matter of, like you said, education, trying
Right.
to get them educated. And education has a tendency to bring people around to doing things and making a change.
Well, you know, that's a great note to end this podcast, today's podcast. Education, and that's really what we want to
Education.
do with this podcast, and really want to educate ourselves first, you and I, and Renan. So I think, you know, it would be a great opportunity for us to learn and to teach uh, the people listening to the podcast out there about what we're learning as we're going through this process. So I'm hoping, you know, we'll start off maybe another podcast in a couple of weeks from now, and we'll try to get another guest on hand and interview him or them and learn what it is that they're doing in healthcare. Because, uh, you know, as time advances and as technology advances, I think, you know, the thing that we really need to do is advance infection control in the hospitals, because that at the end of the day is what can potentially be the most dangerous part of a hospital. It can be the part where you survive the best surgery, the best surgeon, the best medication, and the thing that gets you is the thing that you're living with in that room that we can't get rid of. So,
That we can't see.
and we can't see. That's the scary part. You know,
Yep,
like the demons of old are now the bacteria of new,
that's
right?
true. That's true.
So, so for thousands of years, you know, it changed names, but it's the same problem. Um,
Right.
so I think you know, we can end on that note. I thank you, Ronnie, for joining us, and looking forward to working with you in on this podcast in the future. Renan, thank you for being here, and
Thank you for having me.
Mike, it's a pleasure having you there. As a you're sort of like the teddy bear of the podcast, keeping us going. And Mike, of course, thank you, and we're looking forward to working all together in the near future.
I really loved it. I thought you guys did a great job. I mean, it makes total sense. Couple things I thought of and I wrote down. Identifying variables. What are some of the variables these people are faced with? You know,
Right,
they can bring that up, things they're faced
right,
with. Identify the tools they're using. Let's take a look at what they're
right,
using.
Yep.
Get rid of what you don't want them to use. If you come up with a system, get rid of what they have they don't need. Because if
Right.
it's there, somebody's going to grab it and use it. So it's
Yep.
got to be removed. So then they'll know what to use. And then, of course, the training, which you could do with, if you wanted to promote it ongoing, you could have the QR code attached to items that could teach them about it. If somebody's new and they're picking up a tool, oh, what's this? If they're educated, well, if you need to learn about something, scan the QR code, it'll tell you. It's just a thought, okay?
Yeah.
The
Or you could
training's
do,
also never ending. I believe these bacteria mutate and things like that. The education mutates too. QR code is an
That's
easy
a
way to
good
do that, by the
point.
way.
That's a good
yeah,
point.
just
By
that
the
you
way,
could be, and they could be put anywhere. So if it's a, you could put them in all different areas. So if people need, wherever the tools are. Now, one of the things we did when we were working with the supermarkets, which really I thought was kind of brilliant on my dad's part, was we had tools to measure the results. Because how are you guys with this infection stuff, which is dealing with bacteria and all that? And this is the worst place to be in regards to all that, because it's growing in there constantly, all different things, right? They're fighting things internally and then in the building itself. I mean, people are sick, so they're carrying stuff. And then, okay, so how do you know? I mean, other than visually or the smell,
well,
how
so
do
so
you
Mike,
know?
so Mike, so that's one of the things we'll talk about in a future podcast. But there are different measuring tools that they are using, like ATP tests. There are measuring tools. Some of them are better than others. There are some
Like
new
we used to
state of the
use
art
bacteria testing. We used to do swab testing
cultures. Yep, that's
in the
probably the
meat
most.
Yep.
rooms
Yep,
and the delis and everything to show not only you look clean and smell clean, but you're controlling your bacteria. We pick up mold, all kinds of things,
well,
So
that's a great point, Mike, and that's exactly it. I mean, Mike, and that should be a podcast on its own. The different tools that are used in this in identifying bacteria and viruses. And to add to your discussion, Mike, which we can talk about, is what kind of disinfectants or what kind of approaches to killing germs uh, actually leave a film behind or a biofilm behind
yeah,
that can
retardant.
create an environment where bacteria and viruses grow back even faster than before. So sometimes,
Oh,
the
really
tool
accelerating the bacteria growth.
accelerating that
Oh, I never
exactly.
thought of that. There's
Yeah,
things
because
to inhibit it, but what
but there's
about the
things that can
accelerating?
actually, yeah, just by killing the bacteria, you may create a feeding ground for additional bacteria to grow even
That food
faster
source
than it
that
was
Ronnie was
before.
talking about. Yeah.
Exactly right. So all these things are things that we want to touch on because people don't realize, unless you're an infection control nurse, and even many infection control nurses don't realize the amount of challenges that they're dealing with in a I think most of them by now probably do know, but there's stuff that we want to uncover and to expose to the industry so that people are aware of all the challenges that we're dealing with.
Then I think you know what will help too? Case studies.
Right,
Yeah.
You
right.
got to do some case studies in some hospital because again, you're talking about hospital sharing with other hospitals. Well, if you
Yep,
have case studies of what you've accomplished, that you can't beat that, really.
that is correct. That is correct.
It's a
That's all
lot of
part of it.
material, and there's a lot of things that are involved in making decisions on a lot of these things that we've just discussed. But we want to spoon feed it or actually kind of like drink out of a water fountain versus drinking out of a fire hose because it
Yeah,
is
that's
so
a great point.
overwhelming. Yeah. So we want to enter it gradually and educate on each facet of it because it is so overwhelming.
Yeah, great. So you see, I think the last 10 minutes right now that we just had was the most valuable part of this podcast because I think this is Mike, a guy coming from the outside looking in is exactly what it is we want
Right.
to educate. That's exactly who we want to let know what's going on and to explain the challenges that we're dealing with, while at the same time, the professionals like Ronnie in the industry, the infection control nurses that are out there, giving them access to the technology and data and different opinions in different hospitals. So we hope to have a lot more exposure to infection control nurses and how they approach uh, disinfecting of their hospitals and the different technologies and techniques that they do. And then we hope to educate them on the different processes that we find out there in the industry, whether it's suppliers, manufacturers, whether it's doctors or nurses or just innovators in our industry. We really want to bring that to the table.
Yeah, because Ronnie said it's everyone in the hospital is connected to this. Everybody.
That's correct. That is correct.
It's not
Well-
just limited to the infection control people. It's everybody that's working in the hospital because they are contributing to it, whether they like it or not.
That is
It's got
correct.
to be a team approach.
Right.
It's got to be
100%.
everyone on the team.
100%.
Oh, I like it. I like this whole. Now, what about just quickly UV? Does UV work enough that
Oh,
if you
that's
like
what
run your
discussion
hands
we're gonna
under some
have.
UV light, it would work like
Well,
No.
that is what we are going to definitely discuss in our upcoming podcast. We're going to get into all the nitty gritties of all these subject matter. That's the goal.
okay.
We really want to get into all these different ideas and subjects and see what works, what doesn't work, what is a waste of time, what is phony science versus real science. And we want to
That's right.
expose all
Good. And
that.
with your guys' backgrounds, you can back all that up. So that's great. No, that's good.
Yep.
This is a good thing for sure.
You got it, Mike. You're the best.
All right.
It's been great.
Thanks, guys. You got it.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Be good, guys.
I'll see you.